Age of Legend is the fourth book in the Legends of the First Empire series, and like so many other books in Elan, is chock full of hidden Easter eggs for readers. So today, we are going to cover 10 Easter eggs in Age of Legend. This video will have spoilers not only for Age of Legend, but also for the rest of the Legends of the First Empire series, the Rise and Fall series, and Avempartha. Let's get started. After Brynn was upset that her book had been destroyed and she would have to rewrite it, Malcolm tells her that second attempts are usually better than firsts. This is a small nod by Malcolm since everything he is doing is his second chance to make things right after he originally broke the world. Gifford's ride during the Battle of Granford made him into a legend among the humans and Instaria. Gifford is even referred to as the Night Hero in a poem. This name would stick in a sense, and hundreds of years later, when the Teshlor Guild is created, they would reference this name, transferring Night into Knight, becoming the Teshlor Knights. When Nephron is talking to Gifford, he says that it's like a god is pointing at me and saying, "It's your time." Gifford agrees that he knows how he feels. Little do either character know that Malcolm is a god, and has been directing both characters along their paths. Early in the book, Brynn and Tesh are discussing death, and after Tesh jokes about dying, Brynn responds, "I have a better idea. Don't die." To which Tesh says, "I won't if you won't." This is a crazy Easter egg, as later in the story, Brynn decides to voluntarily die, to which Tesh follows her, killing himself. Technically meaning Tesh stayed true to his word. When Mwandale arrives at Avempartha to pick up Suri, Kel Jared is joined by two new Frey Miraleith characters, Krem and Indis. While these seem like two unimportant characters, Krem and Indis go on to play a huge role later in the series. Krem sacrifices Indis to create a Galarabryn, and this is the same Galarabryn that attacks thousands of years later in both Esarhaddon and Avempartha. When those storylines occur, many readers forget that we have already met Krem and Indis in this book. This also brings up an interesting point that Krem sacrificed Indis, who he loved, in order to create the Galarabryn. But since Indis was also Miraleith, it would have been just as possible for her to sacrifice Krem, which means Krem, who would have already felt guilt at killing Indis, would have felt even more guilt as he is the one who was allowed to live instead of her. This goes a long way in explaining Krem's actions in the later books. As Tesh and Brynn are discussing her book, Tesh offhandedly mentions that she shouldn't be so careless with the loose pages. She mentions that once she is done with the book, Roan can sew the pages together, to which he states that Roan should bind the pages that are done so far. While this seems like a random suggestion, Brynn would take this advice, and the book that is created would become the first book of Brynn. As later, all of Brynn's loose papers, referred to as the second book of Brynn, would be taken and lost. The first book of Brynn, on the other hand, would teach the world to read, passing through the hands of legends such as Bran, the monks of Maribor, and Fairlane, all courtesy of Tesh's suggestion. When Trylos is discussing what constitutes magic with Imali, he states that the sun rising each morning is magical. She counters that the sun rising is a natural occurrence, to which Trylos states, "The only reason you don't see it as magical is because you're used to it. If you hadn't seen it happen and do so every day since you were born, you'd think I was making the whole thing up." The Easter egg here is that if Trylos listened to his own argument, he would have realized something that instead took him over 2,000 years to notice. In Esarhaddon, he realizes that the seasons still occur, which means something or someone must have taken the place of Riyria. He never realized this earlier, as the seasons were something he had seen every day since he was born. As Moya and her party are in the swamp of Ith, she thinks to herself that no one actually believed they could find the Tetlin witch, and that It would be like finding Mari, or like chatting with a ghost. On first read, the point made with the sentence is that they had just seen a ghost, and so Moya is thinking perhaps finding the Tetlin witch isn't an impossibility. But the Easter egg is that the other impossible thing she listed, finding Mari, will actually be done soon by another member of the party, Bryn. I'm sorry, as much as I hate Turin, I don't tell lies, not even white ones. That's more his thing. This quote by Muriel sounds eerily familiar, as we have heard something very similar from another character. Several times throughout the different series, Trylos states that he does not lie and that lying is more of Turin's thing. It is easy to see how Muriel and Trylos connected with one another under Turin's despotic rule. And even with Trylos losing his memory, those similarities still exist. As Bryn's party is navigating the cliffs on Muriel's island, Bryn wonders to herself how anyone could be afraid of heights. This foreshadows Bryn's final death at Avempartha. As she plummeted, mist sprayed Bryn's face, and her hair flew back. She wasn't afraid. Thank you so much for watching today's video. Be sure to subscribe and watch my other videos to learn more about the world of Elan and Riyria. Thanks!